The centerpiece of final Bible prophecy revolves around Israel, God's covenants with the Jewish people, and Jerusalem. I remind you in this study once again that the main events of Bible prophecy are going to be carried out on a geographical stage. That's why I wanted to take some time to explain to you in this teaching on Afghanistan and final Bible prophecy, geography. Because final Bible prophecy is spelled out in the Bible, and the geographical stage is in the Middle East, the Mediterranean region, and parts of Europe. And as you've learned today, Afghanistan is a part of this end time geographical stage. So this is one of the main ways that what you're watching in the news today and the volatility in Afghanistan, this is one of the main ways that Afghanistan ties in to final Bible prophecy. Afghanistan is a part of these nations and these Islamic nations that will rally together in a war against Israel. And I'm going to come to that. We're going to talk in just a moment about Gog and Magog, because this again is how Afghanistan bridges into end-time events. Speaking of geography, just a small piece of trivia. The distance from the capital of Afghanistan, which is Kabul, to the capital of Israel, which is Jerusalem, is 1,968 miles. So just as a piece of prophetic trivia, if you've wondered, as I did, I wonder how far it is from Kabul, Afghanistan to Jerusalem, Israel. It's 1,968 miles, which with military planes is a very short distance. Let me close our time together with the third key point. And the third key point in this Bible study, entitled Is Afghanistan in Final Bible Prophecy, would be the prophetic context of Afghanistan. One of the popular questions that I'm being asked by serious students of the Bible and Bible prophecy, let me read one of the questions that came in, and there have been many questions that basically have said the same or asked the same. Quote, do the events being carried out by the Taliban taking over Afghanistan have anything to do with Bible prophecy? End quote. The brief answer to that is yes. But you know, I've heard in recent days, as I've been researching and reading and studying and trying to prepare and to bring this content to the growing audience that follows our ministry and looks to us for prophetic answers from a biblical perspective, I've actually been amazed at how many notable Christian leaders that I have heard say or they have written, there is no specific, and this is one, I actually wrote it down in my notes as a quote so I wouldn't misquote the individual. And I always endeavor to be gracious even to people who have opposing views, and so I'm not going to give a name. Don't bother writing me or emailing me or private messaging me and say, you know, who said that. I'm not going to try to demean anybody, but this is a direct quote. There is no specific biblical reference to Afghanistan or the Pashtuns in final Bible prophecy. Now, Pashtuns refers to the name of the Afghani people during ancient biblical times. But what this notable Christian leader said, that there's no specific mention or reference to Afghanistan in Bible prophecy, well, I understand perhaps what they're trying to communicate. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. And I've heard several notable Christian leaders. Obviously, they could not be devout students of Bible prophecy because this isn't a complicated question to answer to anyone who knows fundamentals of end-time Bible prophecy that I teach you and bring to you in this content. if they're saying, again, giving them the benefit of the doubt, if they're saying that the word Afghanistan is not in the English translation of a modern Bible, then I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But it seems that they're inferring that Afghanistan is not mentioned in final Bible prophecy, and to that I would have to say, you failed your studies in eschatology if you adhere to that, and let me explain. Again, let's go back to the book of Ezekiel, because now that we're dealing with the prophetic context of Afghanistan, I want you to know where I'm teaching from so that you can make notes and highlight in your Bible. But in the Old Testament book of Ezekiel, which I read a portion and a passage as an introduction text, we discover one of the single most ominous prophecies in all of end-time events about Israel. And it's located in Ezekiel chapter 38 and Ezekiel chapter 39. And in Ezekiel chapter 38 and Ezekiel chapter 39, those two chapters speak about a future battle after the rapture called Gog and Magog. I mentioned it to you in the infancy of this teaching. I promised you we'd come back to it and explain it, so let me do just that. Located in Ezekiel 38 and 39 is the battle of Gog and Magog. The prophet of God warned that this tiny nation of Israel and the Jewish people in the last days would be faced with one of the most apocalyptic events of the end times. Ezekiel prophesied a vast military invasion by a group of allied nations. Write that in your notes, because this is one of those summation points of the prophecy of Ezekiel in the 38th and 39th chapter and an understanding Gog and Magog. Ezekiel prophesied a vast military invasion by a group of allied nations that would descend upon Israel from every direction. This battle prophesied is contained there in Ezekiel 38 and 39, and Ezekiel goes on to prophesy in detailed information, a specific list of the nations and the regions that are going to come against Israel and God's chosen people in this inglorious battle. And what is the motivation for this invasion of Israel by what Ezekiel prophesied as Gog and Magog? It is actually a culmination of the growing anti-Semitism that we're seeing openly in our world today. Anti-Semitism seen openly by world leaders. Some have even accused this administration in this fraudulent, horrific embarrassment in Afghanistan as America turning its back on Israel and showing not only that it does not fully support Israel, but it cannot be counted on to protect the Jewish people in the Middle East at this time in modern history. They have without shame on the United Nations floor, these world leaders, these Islamic leaders, declared their hatred for Israel and the Jews and have sworn, pounding their fist on the podium at the United Nations, spitting and saying with absolute hatred and uncontrolled, vehement passion, we will wipe every Jew and every American off of the face of the earth. Saying that on the United Nations floor, which is located in New York State, which is located in the United States of America, which is hard for me to take, and I'll walk away from that before I get myself in trouble. We've heard the Taliban in Afghanistan. If you've seen any of the news, you've seen hundreds of Taliban soldiers shooting guns, waving swords, screaming in unison the exact same anti-Semitic hatred. It's important. For sake of time, let's identify those modern nations, and there are 10 that are mentioned by Ezekiel in the battle of Gog and Magog. Ezekiel chapter 38, verses 1 through 7, Ezekiel prophesies about Gog. Now, the name Gog in Bible prophecy is found 11 times, all of which are in Ezekiel's vision and in this battle of Gog and Magog, all 11 times in chapters 38 and 39. It seems clear to many eschatology scholars, Gog is not the name of a nation. When he prophesies and shares his vision about Gog and Magog, Gog is not the name of a nation. What most logically flows from the understanding of interpretation from this passage, it's the name of the leader of this unholy invasion against Israel. As long as I have my Bible open to Ezekiel 38, look down at verse 2. Ezekiel chapter 38, verse 2. Son of man, turn and face Gog of the land of Magog, the prince who rules over the nations of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. So just from Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 2, that verse alone seems to offer definitive support that Gog is not a nation. Gog is the name in prophecy of the leader that will host these armies in this invasion against the nation of Israel and the Jewish people. Gog is addressed multiple times by God. He's addressed not only as a prince who rules over the nation, but he's addressed in fashion that gives him great political authority in that part of the world. There are 9 other proper names in Ezekiel's vision, in Ezekiel 38, verses 1 through 7, and these represent specific geographical locations. That's why I took time in this Bible study on Afghanistan in Bible prophecy to highlight for you so that you'll always remember going forward in your understanding of Bible prophecy and end-time events the significance of geography in that part of the world. So let's address the 9 nations that are mentioned under the banner of Magog. According to the Jewish historian Josephus, the ancient Scythians inhabited the land of Magog. By his own words, the Scythians were actually northern nomadic tribes who inhabited territory from Central Asia across the southern region of what we would now address as modern Russia, sometimes referred to as the, quote, Stan, unquote, nations. Magog today probably represents nations from the former Soviet Union. And when I say Stan nations, S-T-A-N in quotes, that would be Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and you guessed it, Afghanistan. I want this to sink in as we conclude our Bible study together. The United States military, the greatest restraining military force in Afghanistan and this Islamic region, has been driven out suddenly by 75,000 or fewer, untrained, many uneducated, many illiterate. And I'm not trying to be mean-spirited about them. If they have a soul, God would like to save them and redeem them. But it seems like a line is being drawn in the sand as we approach the nighness of the rapture of the church. It seems like a line has been drawn in the sand, not only geographically in the Middle East, not only in the Islamic region of the world, but on the shores of the United States of America. A line in the last days prior to the rapture has been drawn in the sand, and now more than ever before, it seems easy to identify the enemies of God and the allies of God. Forbes magazine said this, and this is a quote from a secular liberal magazine. Quote, "The U.S. has provided $83 billion worth of training and equipment to Afghan security forces Since 2001, this year alone, the United States military aid to Afghan forces was $3 billion. I did a little research, and a recent report that was recently released by the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction indicates that the United States has left in that country more than 150 modern military aircraft. This includes 4 C-130 transport aircraft, 23 A-29 Super Tucano turbo ground attack aircraft, 45 of our Black Hawk helicopters with the latest technology, 50 smaller MD-530 helicopters armed for war, over 2,000 armored vehicles, including United States Humvees, Scout attack helicopters, Scan Eagle military drones equipped for war, surface-to-air rockets, countless cases of military rifles, ammunition, and the list is on and on and on. And the truth is, we will probably never know what we've left behind in Afghanistan. But here's the point. The point is, the United States, in this embarrassing withdrawal, has left to our worst enemies our best technology. I'm going to say that again. Perhaps one of the most frightening things to consider for the future is America has left to our worst enemies our best military technology. I mean, just for a horrific example, only God knows how many hundreds of those air-to-ground missiles have been left, where with simple training, a Taliban member can take a ground-to-air missile with infrared heat-seeking and greater technology, and any aircraft can be shot from the sky. Imagine the potential of world terrorism in the days ahead because of what America has left into the hands of those who seek to destroy us. Think about that just for a moment, because as we speak, it's being traded to China, it's being traded to Russia, we know it's being traded to Iran and Iraq. And America's sudden, embarrassing, abject failure and withdrawal from Afghanistan has left in the hands of our worst enemies our best military technology. And that, my friend, outside of the hope of Christ and the knowledge of Bible prophecy, is frightening for the days that lie ahead.
Các bạn mở cái đường tròn lượng giác ra, các bạn sẽ hiểu rõ hơn nè. Đây là vị trí cân bằng, đây là biên dương, đây là biên âm. Rồi, tại thời điểm t bằng 0, vật đang ở vị trí cân bằng và đi lên biên dương, tức là nó ở vị trí này nó đi lên biên dương. Rồi tiếp tục từ vị trí biên dương nó đi về vị trí cân bằng. Thì tương ứng với chất điểm chuyển động tròn đều ở ban đầu nó nằm ở M0 ngay đây, bắt đầu nó chạy lên tới vị trí này. Đây là vị trí M1, tức là nó ngay biên dương. Từ vị trí M1 này nó quay lên tới cái vị trí này, đây là vị trí M2, đây là vị trí cân bằng. Đúng chưa? Như vậy các bạn thấy thời gian để đi từ M0 đến M1 đến M2 là nửa đường tròn, tức là nó nửa chu kỳ. Và nửa chu kỳ này thì thời gian đi từ đây đến đây các bạn thấy nó bằng 60 mili giây, đúng không ạ? Như vậy chúng ta có nè, thầy làm, ta có 1/2 chu kỳ bằng 60 mili giây. Như vậy thầy suy ra chu kỳ bằng 2 nhân 60 là 120 mili giây. Đúng không ạ? Mili giây đổi ra thì đó là bằng 0,12 giây. Được chưa? Chia cho 1000 đó các bạn, giờ dấu phải lên 3 số. Rồi. Tiếp tục chúng ta tính tần số. Thì tần số nó là nghịch đảo của chu kỳ thôi chứ không có gì hết. Đúng không ạ? F nè bằng 1 trên T nè, 1 trên 0,12 đơn vị là Hz. Thế là xong cái bài số 4 của mình. Được chưa? Xong cái bài số 4 mình nha. Rồi bây giờ tiếp tục chúng ta qua cái bài số 5. Xem nội dung bài số 5 như thế nào đây các bạn. Bài số 5. Xét một vật dao động điều hòa có biên độ. Biên độ là chữ A đó các bạn. Tần số là chữ F. Tại thời điểm ban đầu, tức là tại thời điểm T0 bằng 0 nè, vật có ly độ cực đại